I do believe that indeed we are live. And if you're wondering what that is, that's some materials from the Rogue North Hash House Harriers. Yeah, the Hash House Harriers. That's that's our hash house. And the 2022 Pink Dress event, a charity event to benefit cancer patients, featured the Sasquatch imagery. So, Squatch. Anyway, space weather still incoming. We haven't seen all of the impacts that we're expecting. At least one more CME impact is still on the way. And then also, more importantly, there's a Corona Hole high-speed stream that could be interacting with that as we make the video. So that's always exciting. So leave us a comment. Let us know if you're covering any news stories, if there's anything in particular that you're looking at. Of course, gold prices are something to talk about, certainly. We'll talk briefly about things like financial markets today, the decline of the US dollar with respect to gold, and of course, I'm only happy when it rains. Just kidding, folks. As a cyclist, although I do handle a bike very well, so I actually do like when a bike race happens in the rain because it pushes me up the results board. The rain pushes me up the results board because I can corner, let's just say, rapidly. Yeah. The one season I had a season pass to the local snowboard spot. It's called Blue Mountain, all right? And I was an independent insurance agent, so I could do whatever I wanted. And that year I got a season pass, and I probably went to the mountain over 100 times that year. And that was when I became a skilled snowboarder. I mean, I was kind of I was kind of garbage until then, but that year I went so many times that I mean, I was like the local dude who would open the mountain and create all of the awesome lines. And then sometimes I would go in the morning and open the place, head home at around lunchtime, and then for the evening session, come back with my friends and say, check out this line, dudes. And we would rip shit, dip shit. You know, when you get to decide where the hits are because you showed up when the groomer marks are still fresh, you know, there's a quarter pipe all the way down the mountain where it cuts into those big snowbanks. So there's a quarter pipe all the way down the mountain. You can just air it out and land as deep into the powder as you can roll out of. And congratulations, you've created a new line. That's how you do it. So, yeah, we're going to talk space weather. We're going to briefly talk finance because gold has exceeded $4,000 and then some. Also, silver prices are jacked up. And look, there's a massive NASDAQ bubble, okay? The NASDAQ stocks are hugely overinflated. As I was telling the boss yesterday, well, boss one of two, I was telling her that, look, the stocks in the NASDAQ are more overvalued than they were during the tech bubble of 1999. So if you remember the tech bubble of 1999, when the NASDAQ crashed real hard, before 2001, when the tech bubble burst, there were some really overvalued stocks. Pets.com was one of the famous ones, but you know, legit companies like Yahoo, and Pets.com was legit too, but Yahoo, for example, was trading at like 50 times, 80 times earnings or something like that. And that's a price to earnings ratio that, ask Warren Buffett, it's not sustainable. You have to have that, like, the stock market is not the lottery. I know people say that. They're like, oh, it's controlled. It's George Soros controls stock prices. Institutional investors control stock prices, folks. And like, they're aware of the hyper overinflation of the share prices in the Nasdaq. These companies that all the AI pioneers, absolutely idiotic pioneers. So I'll get to your comments here in a minute. But I want to bring up finance markets here just so I can state some prices. So I'm not going to reference any websites or show you the screen for this section of the video because it's we've got more U.S. strikes against a suspected drug vessel in the Caribbean. So U.S. military entities are just conducting strikes on suspected narco boats, and this is a little bit worrisome to some of us. So anyway, what the heck? All right, so as far as crypto goes, let's see. Bitcoin is at $105,000 per Bitcoin. Ethereum is at 3,777. That's according to Coinmetrics, by the way. The Bitcoin quote I gave you was Bitfinex. And let's see. We've got stellar lumens, according to Coinmetrics, are at 30 cents. So I don't know if that's good. Let us know in the comments if that's like a big uptick in prices. We're going to cover commodities. So this is super important. Of course, I talked about the NASDAQ being massively overinflated. The price to earnings ratios are ridiculous. And for example, as I was telling the boss, if I owned a mutual fund that had Alphabet in it, I would liquidate all of those shares. I don't want to have 1 penny of exposure to Alphabet LLC. That's the parent company of Google, by the way, the parent company of YouTube and so forth. Yeah, those NASDAQ companies, Microsoft, Tesla, I mean, these tech companies, they are as overvalued as they ever get in the market's history. Having exceeded the 1999 tech bubble levels of overinflation in terms of price to earnings ratio. A stock cannot sustainably survive even a 30 times PE ratio. So, I mean, that's a little market statistic you can look at. Price to earnings ratio, it's literally just price divided by earnings. So anyway, let me read your comments here for a minute. If any of them are relevant to anything, I'll address them. Jobless monkeys had nothing better to do than stand in the road. Yeah, pretty much. Kurt Bow says, I'll see you at next week's meet, brother. What are you talking about? I ain't going to no meet next week. I don't know what the hell that means, but I got nothing to do with whatever it is you're talking about. Nothing to do with it. Xander Ham asks a relevant question. What's my favorite drink? It depends on the time of day. So my favorite drink shifts constantly. Right now, it's black organic coffee. Brewed with a drip maker and consumed out of my grandmother's 2-cup glass vintage measuring cup. Yeah, it's pretty good. And it doubles as a weapon. If you have to brain somebody with your coffee cup, it's nice to have an early 1900s vintage one. Because, don't get hit by that. It's a pretty good weapon. I've got enough of those though, so it's the backup for 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 the backup. By the way, we lock the doors here at our condo. We lock the doors because we want to make sure the outside is safe from me. All right. Yeah, so my favorite drink, I mean, overall, my favorite drink is probably beer. But, I mean, water is high up on the list. Electrolyte beverages that I make at home that are just sugar, salt, and lemon or lime juice and water, filtered water. We have a municipal water system here, and we have a filter called Water Drop. It's pretty sweet. It's like a battery operated thing, so you can bring it with you places. Like if you go camping, it just has a handle. You just pick it up off the counter and take it wherever you want to go. It's pretty good. It's called Water Drop. We're not paid to tell you that. So, at least not yet. Maybe it'll be on the jerseys next year. So 2026, the jerseys are up in the air. We're not sure. Do you want your logo on those? Because if so, we may be able to accommodate you. Anyway, gold prices currently $4,346 per ounce. All right. Like a lot of things right now are very much unsustainable. Okay. Oil's only 57 bucks a barrel. So that's good. I mean, prices at the pump have been cheap in the US. However, prices of most things have been more expensive in the US thanks to tariffs. So there are less jobs, higher prices, less selection, lower quality, and shortages. Some things we can't get at all. 100% because of tariffs. Tariffs, the most disgusting word in the dictionary, the dumbest word in the dictionary, and the least aesthetically pleasing word with the smallest penis in the dictionary. Tariffs, a word of small penises. Not beautiful, not smart, small penis, micro penis, that's tariffs. BTC is the symbol for Bitcoin. That's what it means. All right, so that's enough about finance. I've rambled on about it. Let's talk about space weather, what we're really here for. Cosmic ray flux remains at a 20-year low, and we may see it drop lower than that. But there are some of the monitors there. That's Oulu, Finland. The Oulu neutron monitor. So there it is. You can see right here, lowest levels since 2004 right now. So cosmic ray flux, if anybody tells you energy from space is spookily increasing, spooky, spooky, deadly, spooky energy from space, if they mean cosmic ray flux, then they're lying or they're just wrong. Cosmic ray flux, lowest levels since 2004. All right, the highest levels we ever measured were around 2008 to 2010. Just so you know. Moving on to look at the latest Huxt animation. So here's the University of Reading CME forecasting. This is one of the best in the world. And yeah, as you can see, any minute there is another CME about to strike Earth. Also, a coronal hole stream is catching up to that, as is depicted, as we've forecasted on the channel. All right? We hit this forecast up before anybody else because sometimes you're just Johnny on the spot. So, like, what can I say? These are just facts. And, yeah. So, CME and a coronal hole high-speed stream coming, and we're going to see some big perturbations on the solar wind data. Next, sunspot number is surprisingly low here considering the high radio flux we have. So right now, sunspot number and radio flux have diverged from each other. Normally, they're directly proportional. So when you have a high radio flux, you have a high sunspot number. Right now, we have a high radio flux and a low sunspot number, relatively speaking. So right now, we have actually 115 sunspots approximately, according to the Royal Observatory Belgium, and the radio flux is all the way up at 160, according to solon.info/solar. Solar wind is at, here we go. Here's a coronal hole high-speed stream impact, or the CME. Oh, check it out. We're going to go into geomagnetic storm. So look at that. BTBZ, which is this top line up here. BT is 11 nanotesla, BZ is -8. That's the vertical component of the magnetic field. So most of that magnetic field is southward oriented. There you go. 8/11ths of it are southward. So that's what you want for geomagnetic storms. We will be at, assuming these other data stay the same, we're going to be at KP5. We're going to be in a geomagnetic storm the next time this updates. So in about 2 hours, if this stays the same, KP5 is coming. So now, is this the CME impact or the coronal hole high-speed stream? Great question. It could be both arriving at the same time, but let's see. How high do we get here? Let me zoom in a little bit. Hang on a minute. It can be a little clunky as this is a live applet. Okay, so solar wind densities. Let me change the time scale here. We got 3 days. Let's put it up to 1 day. There we go. So we did see some dense plasma here. It got up to 24 protons per cubic centimeter. Nothing too crazy. That looks like the onset of a coronal hole high-speed stream, folks. So expect to see this drop down. I mean, right now we're around 14 protons per cubic centimeter. That looks like the onset of a coronal hole high-speed stream. So that's what I suspect is happening currently. And there is still another CME. So the coronal hole high-speed stream has effectively passed CME Earth-directed number 2. And it's probably interacted with it on the way. So it could have made it stronger, it could have made it weaker, and they could be arriving at the same time. So that can be deceptive. As far as the proton flux, no spikes in the proton flux, but we do have a high likelihood of solar energetic particle events because we have a strong magnetically complex sunspot group setting on the western limb. So the likelihood of X-class flares and indeed SEPs, as shown here by the GOES proton flux, none at the moment, but they are likely. Only one M-class flare so far today, as you can see here. Let's switch this to the 1-day view. There you go. So, but the background X-ray flux you can see here is quite high. Background X-ray flux is all the way up to about a C5. So that's promising. And we'll show you where the offenders are. But first, let's see if we got any new CMEs. Here's LASCO C2. And the coast is looking pretty clear here. So, yep. And here's the current El Sol imagery, courtesy of the GOES 19 SUVI. That's ionized helium. And yeah, 304 angstroms is the best wavelength from the GOES 19 to view things like filaments. It's also great at showing active regions, and you can even see coronal holes like this one right here. Here's a massive, massive filament. This one should actually get named. And if you want to name filaments after your friends, foes, or even yourself, join us over on Twitter. Twitter.com/smash-a-mash. Sorry, Francisco, we're not covering any Earth weather today. So here is the, we're going to look at the magnetogram here. Let's get the latest from El Teide. Let's do Udaipur, India this time. Here's Udaipur, India. And this sunspot has not degraded a lot. So this one is less complex. But this one up, hold on a minute. Let me make sure you can see that. This sunspot has lost some magnetic complexity. This one's less likely to flare, all things considered. But this one up here is actually similarly likely to flare. And as it sets here on the limb, its likelihood of producing a large flare goes up about 4%. So that's a significant amount, folks. You know, we often say that, oh, there's a 5% chance of an X-class flare from a given source. So let's look at Udaipur's. This is the 677 nanometer wavelength. Hydrogen alpha. No, this is, I'm sorry, this is not hydrogen alpha. This is just intensity gram. Similar to what you'd see with visible light. Yeah, very high likelihood of an X-class solar flare from this setting group up here in the northwest. Next, we'll look at some magnetic data, I think. Bear with me a moment. I'm going to show you the coronal hole line of sight plot, sector boundaries, and the line of sight field plot. So here's our coronal hole line of sight plot. You can see there is a South Pole oriented coronal hole, basically just passing the Earth strike zone, as Tamitha Skov calls it. Shout out to Dr. Skov, probably the world's leading space weather expert and content producer. There's the current image. That's what's going on right now. Here is our line of sight field plot. Now this is going to show the solar B field in blue. That's sort of like the net field of the sun. You can see it looks all fanned out from our perspective. And that's because of this coronal hole. And you can see its open field lines there, looking like they're ready to swallow you up. Coronal holes. They are a super important feature of solar cycle progression. Last but not least, here is our line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. This is the magnetism of the heliosphere. And this also does, let me zoom in a little more so you can see this a little better. This shows stereo A, which is located out here, speeding away from Earth, orbiting a little bit faster in a slightly tighter orbit than Earth. And over here, we've got stereo B. So they are graphically depicted here, so you can sort of get a better idea because their magnetometers help to figure into this total data set. As you can see, Earth is in a South Pole-oriented magnetic sector, and we're going to stay there for the foreseeable future here, at least 3 or 4 days out until we're likely to cross this sector boundary, assuming that no major changes happen on the closest star. Electron storms continue, so expect bad GPS performance, especially between times like 10 and 2 p.m. The daytime side of the planet, you can expect some crappy GPS performance. So be prepared for that. That could help you out. Don't get lost on your bike or in the forest or in the hood. Unless you want to, then do as you like. All right, so let's see. Here's the latest image. There's 171 angstroms. And that is from the SOHO. And let's close out the video with some imagery from the GOES. Again, large solar flare watch in that northwestern limb. That's the most likely place to see a large solar flare. Again, a CME on the way as a co-interacting region with a coronal hole high-speed stream. And yeah, exciting times for space weather. Hopefully you're not consuming a bunch of space weather nonsense on YouTube. I know there's plenty of that. So let us know in the comments the latest space weather nonsense you've heard, and I'm out. But until next time, I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And until you see the aurora, may that solar wind be at your back.